what are the metrics for diversity, equity, and inclusion? What should people be measuring and looking at in the work that we do?
So honestly, I really think it depends on the industry that you're coming from for more nuance in terms of what you might be measuring. But I do think that organizations who are doing this work can all look at a few different metrics to measure over time for sure. And those we call the equity analysis framework. And that's what we do here at Evergreen Health. We look at about five different metrics and it includes human capital. So this is an internal facing component of what you might measure. I think there's also external facing data points and metrics that you might also consider as well. Internally, we're looking at things like representation and headcount. What does that representation look like in the varying ranks of our organization, right? In leadership, in management, and frontline staff, and direct contributors from that standpoint. So representation and headcount, we also know that a best practice is to look at the city that you might work in and measure that your staff compared to the city demographics, right? And so internally, we're looking at representation and headcount. We're also looking at things like development and job advancement, right? So how long have you been at the organization? What has your development specifically been? How long has it taken you to grow in our organization? And the idea is to get to a point where we can kind of be more predictive and say, hey, your success rate looks like this when you come into our organization. We're also looking at things like retention and turnover, who's leaving. We're looking at it from a voluntary aspect and involuntary aspect as well. What does turnover look like in different departments or centers that exist within our organization? We look at something like job satisfaction and employee engagement. We're measuring that based off of like employee engagement survey and studies. And then we're looking at pay and compensation as well and a pay equity component to that. And so for each one of these different data metrics, we're looking to disaggregate that information as much as possible, looking at things like age, gender, race, ethnicity. We're trying to do some sexual orientation. I know that's something that's voluntary. So we're looking at ways to actually do that to get more data on what that looks like. But the reality is, every single one of these data metrics we'll be able to disaggregate and look at who is being successful in the organization and be very specific in who that might be.